Hi, Kara. Good evening from the YG Club. We're directly behind and above home plate here at Duncan Park. We are waiting for Senator Chris Murphy to arrive to greet some of his supporters, to speak to the state. And Kara, as you mentioned, within minutes of the polls closing, CBS News, the Associated Press, and several others calling this race for Senator Murphy. We're still waiting for him to arrive here at the YG Club. We know that Senator Richard Blumenthal is here, supporting him. Governor Lamont expected here as well. Other Connecticut Democrats here. We have about 200 people expected here at the YG Club to celebrate with Senator Chris Murphy. And he told me a couple of hours ago, Kara, he was very confident that he would win this re-election campaign, that he would serve a third term in the U.S. Senate representing everyone here in Connecticut, that he wasn't taking anything for granted. And Kara, it's very similar to what happened 2 years ago when Senator Blumenthal was running for re-election. Within 2 or 3 minutes, the race was called. Similar situation here. As soon as Senator Murphy arrives and this whole place gets crowded here and filled behind me, we'll bring you Senator Murphy's remarks here live on the Wax. Kara, we will send it back to you for now.
Dylan, thank you. And of course, we know that your race was projected quite early, Senator Chris Murphy, which may have not been a surprise. That was not a tight race. We know that the AP has also called it for Kamala Harris, and also not a surprise. But I want to bring in our panel because, of course, everyone has been talking about that today. Turnout, when are we going to know? And let's just start from the national perspective. We know that Pennsylvania is a slow vote counter. We don't expect to have anything from them for the balance of power or for the presidential race tonight. Is that right?
Right. I mean, every state has different laws. Every state takes a different amount of time. I think Nevada accepts mail-in ballots from the military until the end of the week. I mean, different states do it different ways. So it will take a while, just for the natural course of events. I know everybody's impatient. We all want the results right away, but it will take a while.
Apparently, we're going to have Florida tonight because of that new law.
Yeah, that's a new law. Yeah.
And, you know, we were talking about, as we look at races like the 5th District, or to see how things are going and what you might be looking at for the trends tonight, both for Connecticut and for the nation. What are you looking for, Jimmy, to see some of the early returns when they do start to come in? What are you going to be trying to analyze?
Well, in seeing Kamala Harris on the ballot in Connecticut, it's interesting to see how well does she do in Connecticut. With President Biden, Biden won, for example, in the 5th congressional district by 11 points. Hillary Clinton, when she ran for president, was less. I think it was about 6 points. So where are we in terms of the support that Kamala Harris is seeing across Connecticut? Because that will play a role with the different congressional districts, including in the 5th congressional district. And we know that there are pockets of support for President Trump across Connecticut. And so how does then that play with some of those state Senate candidates and some of those state representative candidates that might be running in a place where the top of the ticket, President Trump, will do very well. And if they're a Democrat, can they outperform their own party and their own top of ticket in their own district? So there's some interesting races that I'm looking for.
You were out, I know, with campaign conversations.
Yeah. I don't know that we have coattails so much as we have issue tails, and it's immigration versus reproductive choice. As the issues. The economy can go either way. Obviously, Trump polls better on the economy, and the Democrats have tried to fight that, saying we have a good economy. But let's, for the moment, set that aside. It's really, the Republicans have done a great job on immigration, and the Democrats have not done a great job particularly, but they have women's rights and reproductive choice, and I heard some voters talking about those issues. So I think it's less about the people than the issues for a change.
But also, when you look at pockets, right? I mean, it's interesting. Connecticut is the 3rd smallest state in the country, and there's so many different pockets. I mean, if you just take the town of Greenwich, for example, for 80 years it was a strong Republican town, and then it started shifting. In 2016, Hillary Clinton won by, I think, 16 points, and then Joe Biden won by 25 points 4 years ago. And that trickles down, so it's not coattails per se, right. But when you are at the top of the ticket as a president or a governor or a U.S. Senate candidate, and then by the time you get down to the state Senate or the state House, it will affect a lot of times, unless that person you're really searching for on the ballot. I mean, right now we have a race in Greenwich, a state House race, and a state Senate race. They're 2 very contested races, and I think it will depend on how much Trump loses Greenwich will affect the state Senate and the state House race.
when we watch in Fairfield County. Hold those thoughts because I want to come back, but we do want to head out to the 1st Congressional District because that seat is also up for grabs between Democratic Representative John Larson, who has held that seat since 1998, and Republican Jim Griffin. Covers towns in the northern part of our state and, of course, the capital city as well. Channel 3's Aya Galal is keeping an eye on that race, and I saw you earlier at 4 o'clock. It was quite a busy place. How is it now that the polls have closed?
Good. Hi, Kara. Yes, we're at Goodwin University. This is where Representative Larson's team is watching the results come in. We're going to speak with the congressman joining us live right now. Representative Larson, we want to ask you, how are you feeling today?
Fantastic. I mean, this is, I think, a great day for Democrats. It's they've already called Connecticut for Harris and Murphy, and I don't think the congressional district will be far behind either, you know, and we're really so happy for Johanna Hayes, who had a real race, et cetera, and looks like she's going to win convincingly as well.
And you're feeling optimistic about your congressional race?
Yeah, I'm feeling very optimistic about our congressional race, and you know, I'm grateful for the people of the 1st Congressional District who have given me the honor to represent them in Washington, D.C., and it is truly an honor, and hopefully at the end of the night, we'll know what the situation is in the House and Senate and the presidency, and an opportunity to get a lot of things done, especially on Social Security. You know, we're looking out for you, actually. So.
Very good. And you're currently serving your 13th term, looking to continue staying in office.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got a lot of work to do. And look, we've been working on Social Security for almost a decade. And imagine the last time Congress voted to enhance Social Security. It was 1971. That's over 53 years ago. And a lot has transpired since then, not the least of which is cost of living and what's happened. There's more than 70 million Social Security recipients. 5 million get below poverty level checks, most of them women, and most of them women of color. And then another 28 million that the only pension they have is Social Security. In the wealthiest nation in the world, very successful, we've got to make sure this happens. President Biden is right. What we need to do is lift the cap. Most people don't even know that there's a cap on Social Security. But for people making over $400,000, most of them pay nothing or haven't contributed at all. So we lift the cap on them, and that allows us to enhance benefits across the board and extend Social Security solvency into the future.
A big priority for you. Thank you, Representative Larson. That's our time. We're going to send it back to you guys. But for now, reporting live in East Hartford, Aya Galal, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
Aya, thank you. And Congressman Larson speaking there. We do want to check in now on the 2nd Congressional District race. That covers a large portion of the eastern part of our state. Democrat Representative Joe Courtney and Republican Mike France both want that seat. Channel 3's Luke Hydash is here with an update. And, of course, Luke, the big story has also been the voting issues with those 1,000 ballots in North Stonington that people are still concerned about.
Right, Kara, that is, of course, part of this district. This specific race has not been called yet. We are in downtown Norwich at Joe Courtney's watch party. We are expecting to hear from him within the next 30 to 45 minutes or so. He is preparing his remarks here in the building now as supporters and people who worked on his campaign over the last couple of months are here getting ready to hear him speak. We did catch up with him earlier in the day when he was greeting voters at different polling centers across eastern Connecticut, and he said that he feels very confident in this race. He already beat Mike France once 2 years ago, back in 2022. He won that race by about 50,000 votes. When we asked Mike France about that, he said today, well, over the past couple of months, they took a step back. They saw where the holes were in the campaign, what needed to be fixed, what needed to be addressed, and they ran this campaign a little bit differently. Mike France is with his supporters tonight up 395 in Danielson. Again, Joe Courtney expected to be speaking here in Norwich in the next 30 to 40 minutes or so. And of course, we will update you with what he says then. This race has not been called quite yet. We're live in Norwich. Luke Hydash, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
Luke, thank you. And Thomas, I want to start with you because you talked about how when you were in office, even how much went into allowing the early voting planning and thinking about how it was going to be done, and now we've got this issue with 1,000 ballots that weren't signed on the outside, and the Secretary of the State saying she would welcome a lawsuit. She understands that there may need to be one. What does that say? Because people are concerned about, is this all going to be fair? Is it going to work?
Right. I mean, and these things like this happening make people question the process. And to be honest with you, I don't understand how this happened. I mean, these registrars and everybody that work at elections and polls across the state in 169 cities and towns, they all get trained on how this works. And any of us that have voted early, which I have, you know, you fill out the ballot and you sign the envelope on the back. I don't know how somebody didn't believe that to be the case. And so the Secretary of the State mentioning that she welcomes it. I mean, I'm sure she doesn't welcome a lawsuit, but she understands it's legitimate. You know, so if things are, this is a perfect example of when things are actually wrong, legitimately wrong in an election process, we have to fix it and we have to remedy it. And this seems like something that actually went wrong and it needs to be remedied.
But I want to also, there's a lot of fear out there, and I want to bring up what you said earlier before we came on the air, which is that as long as we've been having elections, there's been a small percentage of things that go wrong, but maybe not anything that ever changes the outcome, that our elections are legitimate.
Stratford.
Right. I mean, that's the question, right? Is it going to change the outcome? I mean, is it a negligible thing that's wrong, or is it something that's substantive? You know, we had an issue in Stratford. Dan just mentioned. I mean, people went to the polls to vote for state rep, and they got the wrong ballots. Yeah. Several years ago. Right. I mean, they literally, if they went to vote for me, they got a ballot that didn't have my name on it. It had somebody else's name on it from the other side of Stratford, because there's a few state reps in each town sometimes. And so that was a legitimate thing, and we filed suit. I had a mathematician at Fairfield University look at the numbers. Yeah, right. We knew how many people's ballots didn't go, and we knew the ratio, and it was a 13-vote difference in the race. And he concluded that there's absolutely no way of knowing who would have won that race if those ballots had been done correctly.
Wow.
So it does happen.
Jimmy, I know you probably have something to say, but I'm hearing that Senator Murphy's coming out with an acceptance speech. Let's listen in.
Applause for the best senior senator in the United States of America, Dick Blumenthal. He's here. He's going to speak in a moment, but there is no better governor in the United States of America. A big round of applause for Governor Ned Lamont, who's here. Let me just say this simply. Thank you to the people of Connecticut for giving me another chance to be Connecticut's United States Senator. I'm deeply grateful to this state for what they have done to put me in a position to work with Dick, to work with our great delegation. I'm just going to say a few words tonight because most of our attention is trained on these TV screens, watching very closely the national drama play out. But I only ran two pretty simple TV advertisements, digital advertisements this election. But I hope they encapsulate why I'm so excited to have the opportunity to serve another term representing Connecticut. The first commercial shows scenes from my annual walk across the state of Connecticut. It's something I love doing. It was something that was a lot easier 10 years ago when I wasn't 50 years old. But I do it because it's part of what helps me understand what I need to be fighting for on behalf of the people of Connecticut. But I also do it because I want to show people how much I love this job, right? How there's not a single day that I take it for granted, that I'm willing and ready to do exceptional things to make sure that I'm listening to everyone in this state. My mother grew up in public housing in New Britain, Connecticut, and she thinks it's such a miracle that her son, one generation removed from poverty, gets to be a United States Senator. And so I'm here to say thank you, and I'm here to pledge to the state of Connecticut that in my third term, there will not be a single day that I won't look upon this opportunity as the greatest gift of my life. The second commercial of this campaign talks about my work with Senator Blumenthal 2 years ago to pass the first gun safety measure passed in the United States Congress in 30 years, the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. I just think on a night like tonight, it's important to remember that we don't work as Democrats and as progressives to win elections. Elections are a means to an end. We work so hard on these elections because we want to change people's lives, right? We don't accept a world in which big corporations capture all of the power and resources, leaving peanuts for the rest of us, right? We don't accept a world in which our children fear for their lives when they walk to school and when they sit in school. We run these elections to win, but then to do something with the power that we are given by the voters. And I'm very proud of the accomplishment that we have been able to achieve together as a pair, as a partnership in the Senate. But I tell you, I'm prouder of nothing more than after 30 years of the gun lobby being in charge of Washington, D.C., watching Connecticut lead the growth of the modern anti-gun violence movement, and 2 years ago,
You've been listening to Senator Chris Murphy accept the AP call, saying that he will keep his U.S. Senate seat in a job that he loves. We want to go now to Channel 3's Stephanie Simoni, and she is watching the presidential race with our interactive board and technology. Stephanie, what can you show us now?
Kara, this is very interesting. Actually, the AP just called Illinois for Vice President Harris. So I want you to take a look at these 19 votes, electoral college votes, and it looks like with just 11% reporting that Harris will take the state. I want to bring in presidential historian Tom Belsurski, and he's a professor with Eastern Connecticut State University. Something that you said was very interesting to watch. Also, we've been talking about this, the battleground state of North Carolina, and right now the numbers are starting to trickle in there. 23% of votes are in. What strikes you right now about this map?
Yeah, so when it comes to North Carolina, you're going to want to be focusing on the two major population centers in and around the Research Triangle of Raleigh-Durham. That's going to put you in here. We have Wake County, you have Chatham, you have Durham, and you have Johnston. This area is a growing part of the state. You also have the area in and around Charlotte, which again is going to put us in this direction. And these are going to be counties to watch as well.
And you can see the rural counties, of course, still going to Donald Trump, which is what we're expected to see. Another state worth watching is Michigan. This one was supposed to be called early. We were supposed to get these numbers quickly. So far, we are seeing some of them pour in, but just 7% right now. And it looks like Harris is up with about 60,000 more votes, just 7%. Anything striking you about this map?
Yeah, with Michigan, the classic bellwether county here is Macomb County. Now, in 2008, President Obama won this county, and ever since, political scientists, historians want to watch out for it. Only 0.1% in, so we don't know. But this is generally more of a working class, white, mostly voters, college degree or not, and it's really kind of a test of whether Michigan is going to stick with the Trump campaign as it did in 2016 or flip back as it did in 2020.
And something really important noting to the viewers at home, and I know you know this, so we have this 2020 button down here. This will tell us what it went to last time. So last time Joe Biden won Michigan. So when we hit that, that's what it says. So when you see that, it lets us know how it flipped. Another one that flipped in 2020 was Georgia. Right now, it's, I mean, still too close to call, obviously. 55% of the votes are in. Looks like Trump leading with about 300,000 more votes.
And same story here. Watch Atlanta, watch the Atlanta suburbs. It's just one city to be focused on, but this area right here is going to decide the election this time around.
All right. Thank you. Tom Belsurski, our presidential historian. Kara, back to you.
Steph, thanks. And while there's a lot of focus on the presidential race, understandably, the balance of power in Congress on this election day and at the state level, there are a lot of races that both parties in our state legislature are really keeping an eye on. We'll get to our analysis in a moment, but Chief Investigative Reporter Sam Smink is live in our studio with what you need to know about the influential races in Connecticut tonight. Sam.
Here in the state legislature, the Democrats have a majority in the House and Senate, while leaders in both parties agree that the majority is not likely to change. The majority in the Senate could become greater if Democrats win in 3 competitive races. One of those competitive races is taking place in the 8th State Senate District between incumbent Republican Lisa Seminara and Democratic Paul Honing. I just checked. 10% of precincts are reporting right now Seminara is ahead. This is a rematch from 2022. Last time, only 124 votes separated the two. Democrats are hoping to flip a key state Senate seat in Greenwich, Stamford, and New Canaan. Incumbent Republican Ryan Fazio is running against Democrat Nick Simmons. The seat went Democratic in 2018 after a century in Republican hands, but went back to Republican control in 2021 when Fazio was elected. Right now, with 9% of precincts reporting, Fazio is down. Incumbent Republican Tony Wong is facing challenger Rob Blanchard. Wong's last 3 races were very close. On the state house side, Democrats are hoping to keep their seat in the 81st district of Southington. Incumbent Democrat Chris Poulos is running against Republican Jim Morelli. Representative Poulos won his seat by 1 vote in 2022. A race that Republicans are hoping to overturn in the House is the race for representative in Torrington, where incumbent Deputy Speaker Michelle Cook faces a challenge from Republican Joe Canino. Now, we are watching these races closely, and we'll have more information as the night goes on. Sam Smink, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
All right, Sam, thank you. And let's start with that 81st district. We talked about that before the show about, wow, only 1 vote. If anyone thought, I mean, we've had voters say, I'm sitting this one out for a myriad of reasons, but 1 vote really can make a difference, especially in our local races. Jimmy, can we start with you?
Yes. Every vote really does count, right? When people say that, it's just not true. This state representative 2 years ago won by 1 vote. We had the district that Senator Fazio now represents won by about 60 votes last election. So every vote really does make a difference. And when you go and you take a look at the work that is done, it's about pulling out the vote in every single race. And I think what's also important to note is the early voting. We had 740,000 people participate in our early voting this year for the first time ever, and over 100,000 more participate in absentee ballots. So I think what's also interesting to note tonight is that we're seeing the results coming out of the polling places and the precincts right now, but also all of our registrars of voters, which are neighbors and people in every town working on their own local elections, taking a look at those early voting returns and the absentee ballot returns. So what you see coming out of the polling places might be different than what's going to be coming out of the early voting, because who participated in the early voting? 740,000 people. When we took a look at it, it skewed more Democratic, it skewed more women, and it skewed older. And I think that's important to take a look to see how were those voters voting, because all those votes are going to be coming in overnight and in the coming days. So it does test our patience that we have a new way of voting now through the early voting, and it's a lot of votes to sift through at the local level.
Thomas, I want to talk about the female vote, because we have talked about this. You are a staunch Republican, but you chose to do a write-in candidate because you couldn't bring yourself to really vote for President Trump. There may be other people like that. If we're seeing a lot, talk about the gender gap and the voting and what you expect on these local races and maybe nationally.
You know, I think we talked about it depends on, like in a state like Connecticut, it depends on how much Kamala, it's not that she won, we knew she would win, it's just how much she wins by. And that will affect the congressional seats, particularly the 5th. It will affect the state house and state senate seats. But it also matters who doesn't vote, right? It's just as much the groups that turned out. Like if women turn out in a large number, that will affect the vote. If some women don't turn out, that will affect the vote. You know, we talked about Michigan and the whole Israeli-Palestine conflict and what's going on there, you know, and who people trust with that and who people don't trust with that. So, you know, I think women are going to